Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Chiara Mazzucco. She is a speaker, mentor, content creator, and founder of a company called Bold Self. They're an empowerment brand for female entrepreneurs. I met her a few years ago at a high-end mastermind for coaches, and she's just doing some really awesome things. And really amazed by her success and the impact that she's able to have in business and mentoring women. And I thought she would be a perfect guest to have on and discuss, kind of what are some of the challenges that women may have in business, and her feelings on, areas that women can grow and improve, and be successful, as well as maybe some advantages and disadvantages in the modern marketplace. So I enjoyed the convo, enjoyed catching up with her, and if you enjoy this episode, rate 5 stars on iTunes. That helps. Share with your friends, and enjoy the episode.
This is Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams, where differing opinions are not only accepted, they're encouraged.
All right, Chiara, we are live. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So how is your 2021 going so far?
It's actually good. I feel like I'm emerging. I didn't feel the effects of 2020 until towards the end of it. So 2021 was this kind of reemergence, coming out, crawling out of a hole. But all good so far. How's yours going?
Phenomenal. I mean, and by the way, not to congrats on yours going well. I just dove right into mine. I was so excited to share. No, just a lot to be grateful for. Some new business ventures we're involved in. Obviously the country is opening back up, so have some travel planned, and just a lot to be grateful for, right? We had record years in 2020 for business, which was common in a lot of people's businesses that were online, centered in e-commerce space like ours. So although a lot of people had challenges in 2020, a lot of people also came out winners, and were some of those fortunate people that ended up doing pretty well. So do you remember where we first met by chance? I'm going to put you on the spot.
I do.
Okay.
It was when I first started my journey as a coach. I think it was my first investment, my first coach that I ever worked with back in 2017. Because I remember I started working with him, and then it was 2 or 3 weeks after that, he had a mastermind in-person event in San Diego. And you and I both attended. That was way at the beginning of my business. I don't even know what I was doing or what I was focusing my coaching on back then. But that's where we met. It was feels like million of years ago.
It was millions of seconds ago, right? Or minutes, I guess. Millions of minutes, probably not millions of hours. Millions of minutes or seconds all ago. But yeah, probably summer of 17, right? So it was maybe about 3.5 years ago. And it was Alex Moscow. And we were talking. We never ended up doing a deal with him, but my agency at the time were maybe we can work with you, Alex, and partner up and do some stuff together, and work, because I had familiarity in the coaching space too. Just that's how I knew Alex, and that we met at a group like that. So I was I think there's something here. So I happened to be out on the West Coast. He's like, dude, you should come, and you can get an understanding of what I do. And so I ended up attending, and that's where we met. So
It's crazy.
So what has changed for you since that coaching group?
Oh my God. I'm a whole other human. So back when I started, that was in the summer of 2017, essentially the beginning of my business. At that point, I was single mom living in New York, couldn't pay my rent, had my power shut off that winter. Like credit cards all maxed out, and it was just financially I was rock bottom, but also like emotionally and energetically rock bottom. Had no like I had I had previous businesses and had been online for like I think it was like 7 years at that point. A lot of like organic online presence that I didn't actually monetize very well or strategically. It was a very interesting evolution. And then, since then, it's been 3.5 years. I've put up conferences. I have obviously have had financial growth, and my business has grown and evolved and gone through different iterations, moved from a very like structured way of running it to a more flowy and intuitive kind of way of running.
We're going to talk about that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, it's knocked me on my ass, but it's been a really crazy journey that has like it's gone through really interesting rhythms and accelerations and things like that. So I feel like a completely different human being since since then.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad our connection had that much impact on you. It all went out, it all just like energetically, it all sounded like things started turning for the better after we crossed paths, So
It was all you. It was all you.
Yeah, no, we that was fun. I actually, after that, I ended up, who I kept in touch with a little bit, and I should have booked something with him, and maybe I will at some point, but the guy Kai that was there, do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He does like these retreats out in his place in the mountains or whatever, but it always sounded cool. I never committed to doing that. I don't know what it was, but I that's something I feel like is calling my name in the next year or two.
Yeah. His stuff is great.
Have you worked with him before?
Well, I haven't directly worked with him, but when I worked with Alex for about a year or so. So a lot of my working with Alex included a lot of Kai. There was a lot of support on his end. He was very much involved in like the experiences. So I got to really, I got to enjoy like his mastery in all things like within that container. I never like worked with him privately, but he's a good guy and like really well versed in what he does.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like I've developed a lot on a personal and maybe somewhat of a spiritual level since then too. And I remember this guy, for people listening, he just his energy and aura about him, there was just, something special about him. But then he's making like herbal teas for everybody, and I'm like, okay, like this guy knows his shit. He has these private retreats and like intimate retreats for, I think, for couples, leadership teams, things like that, like in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, where you just do self work in nature. And I don't know, it's definitely, I'm like selling myself on it. But
You know what I think it's funny? I think you and I at that retreat were like the only two that hadn't yet really, or like we were dipping our toes or we're just being exposed to like that spiritual space within the entrepreneurial community. Because I remember it was like brand new for me. Like I walked in and everybody like gave me this like long hug and made this like crazy eye contact. And it was like, I see you. And I was just like, this is weird. Like, what have I gotten myself into? It was like the first time that I kind of experienced that. And if I remember correctly, it was a similar experience for you. This was like, you just kind of started exploring that. So it was really fun to experience that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in a rural town in Florida, right? So that whole life of California, just spirituality mixed with entrepreneurship. I think that's the simplest way to explain it, but that was definitely new for me. I think around that time,
me too.
Maybe a couple things prior, like a few months prior or something, but that was definitely new for me. So you started investing in coaching. What is your opinion on investing in, this isn't a trick question, but like what is your opinion on investing in coaching in general, and like how did it impact you?
I think it's really interesting because I want to preface this by I've been in the online space, for over a decade. So I've kind of gotten to witness the emergence of the coaching industry in the online space and really like like invest in yourself becoming this like big spotlight kind of marketing approach. So it's been really interesting for me on a personal level. When it was everything. I had, in the financial situation that I was in, I was web designing and graphic designing at the time before I started working with Alex. And I was struggling so much, and I had just picked up a couple of jobs, and I just got my bank account to $1,000 in the green. And I was just like, I can't live my life like this anymore. I need to do something big. I need to do something drastic. Like, this isn't about putting a Band-Aid on a hole. Like, I need a new ship. Like, I can't keep covering, things and trying to put Band-Aids on this. So for me, when it was about $40,000 of an investment to work with Alex for 12 months. And obviously I signed the contract for a monthly retainer. I think it was like $4,000 a month. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was $4,000 a month for 10 months. And then there was like some sort of a deposit for the difference. Whatever.
What gave you the confidence, like based on your position at the time? 40,000 was seems like an absorbent amount of money. What gave you the confidence, and confidence / maybe like that little bit of craziness to move forward with that?
I love that. Yeah, honestly, rock bottom is a wonderful place to be when you've got nothing to lose. So for me, I remember the wake up call came because I had been struggling for over a year. I left my corporate job like a year prior, and I had been freelancing and kind of like getting my head above water and then sinking back down, getting my head above water. And I was so fed up with the way things were. And in that financial state, I had somebody offer to buy me groceries. And as much as I wanted to accept the money to buy groceries when I was struggling financially, that was the wake up call of being like, this is literally just putting Band-Aids. Like, I don't want any of this. There was this like big declarative moment of like, this isn't about like changing, tweaking, improving. This is like, scrap this shit. Let's build something. Like, this is going to take a drastic step. So what I did was I completely like submerged myself into, literature like Think and Grow Rich and Jim Rohn, and like really like, I'm like, who are these people? Just like diving in. And it was like daily meditations. Like I was like committed to reprogramming because it wasn't about improving my life. It was about a declaration of like going for a new one. And I remember reading Alex's testimonials page before I even started and seeing these people that were making $30,000 a month, and I was like, what? Like, I haven't made that in 2 years combined, like, what the fuck? Like, these people are making it in a week. Like, how is this like a thing? And so, it was interesting because I would read and reread. And then I started to kind of check these people out, and I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. And it was like this building and stacking, and it was a mixture of this declarative like burning of the ships. It was like, fuck this. So actually when I signed that contract, when I was like this declarative, I'm going to change my life. When I signed that contract, it was a very clear declaration of like, success is inevitable. I knew that I would get up before I even fell. So I'd be like, I don't care how many times I fail. Like, I'm now on the hook legally for $40,000. Like, I needed something that dramatic because I knew that I just couldn't live my life. So it was a mixture of confidence, yes, a mixture of reprogramming, a mixture of, energetically backing or putting my money, where my mouth is and all of that. And almost like a level of like, deliriousness of like, like these jackasses can do it. I'm so good at what I do. Like, I know I can do this. And I think the big investment was like my, like, I'm betting on myself. Here I go. So to circle back real quick and answer your question around investments within, especially within like the industry and things like that, I think they're incredibly valuable in terms of like collapsing time and like learning from someone who's done the thing. It's essentially school. There's all of these wonderful benefits. You're basically saying, cool, I want to learn this. I want to accelerate time here. I want to collapse time here, whatever. But I think the real magic of it is the way that you bet on yourself in the process. Because when you're making an investment like that, energetically, psychologically, you're like, I'm going all in. So there's a lot of power in that. And I'm speaking as somebody who, in my prior business, which was an online magazine and in a print magazine, the prior 7 years in the online space, I Googled everything. I taught myself everything for free. I made no investments. So I have the two kind of different approaches, and like I loved all of the things of like teaching myself and all that, but that shit took 8 years. This is like I'm investing and like collapsing time and accelerating the process. And it did. I mean, I 10x'd my investment in 12 months. So it was a good decision.
That's a good ROI. That's almost crypto level. No, and just so if you see me like looking down, I'll write stuff down, like topics I may want to bring up, but I don't want to interrupt you. So just so you see,
you're good. You're good.
I'm not breaking presents. I'm writing stuff down because
You're so
think of
good.
something or hear something. I'm like, where do I start here? So people don't value what they don't pay for, right? And I think that's something I learned, and we have our mastermind. I've been a part of a lot of coaching groups, and there's even it never fails, because I'll have somebody like a friend of mine or something. I'll be like, you know what, like somebody I want to do business with or whatever, or just somebody I used to do business with or whatever it is. And they'll be like in town. I'll be like, you know what, swing by the mastermind, say what's up. And never fails, anybody that doesn't pay doesn't give a shit. They show up late. They're not present. They're on their phone. They're out stepping outside, taking calls. They're doing all the things that I despise in an intimate group. And, I've just promised myself that in any type of group I'm a part of that I own, unless somebody is speaking, which I would say that is their equivalent of a cash investment, if they're flying in or whatever, giving a presentation that they put time into, I would say that's somewhat of equivalent of cash. But unless you're doing that, you're paying to join. You're making an investment to join, not just for our own business, but for your own good. If you do not make that investment, you're not going to give a shit, in my opinion. Do you agree?
Yeah, not only do I agree, but even I want to take it one step further, because I think this is really powerful. There were so many times that shit got hard within, after I said yes, that it would have been so easy to give back into like my old patterns or drop back into scarcity or whatever. That little feeling of like, oh, I'm investing $4,000 a month, kept me showing up through discomfort, through my pattern. So yes, you pay more attention, but beyond pay more attention or making that like time and focus and energetic investment, it's the thing that really like keeps you like present and participating when your old patterns, your bullshit, like, whatever, if you have like scarcity or you have to like really face your monsters around something or whatever, it pulls you in, because especially when that investment is like a good hefty one, and it really represents like your big yes. And there were so many times that like, the financial struggling version of me who wanted to give into that broke girl mentality would want to come up and self-sabotage. But the reality of being on the hook for $4,000 a month pulled me into like, fuck, I got to do this. So it's really powerful just on a personal development level as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. And the price is also important, like you're touching on, because I invested in something called Landmark, and I think it was like $500, and I never even showed up. Because in
Yeah.
my mind, and I say it out loud now, but at the time, my subconscious was I was involved in many other more expensive programs and stuff. And I'm like, is this even going to help me for
Yeah.
$500? Like the price was so low. So that's what's important about having certain groups as well. And this is what, this is my learning experiences over the years, and I've made tons of mistakes and certain things with how we're priced. But the higher price you are as well, people automatically think it's better quality. And
Of course.
you could have, like, the best example I give, is like, do you want, ask any woman, you don't even have to say like the type of purse, but it's like, do you want a $2,000 purse or a $50 purse, and it's like that the $50 could be better quality, it could be, but just the fact that it's $2,000, there's something in our brains that makes us think it's better quality. And I saw this YouTube video recently that I feel like every entrepreneur should watch. A guy made two of the exact same cakes, like the same batter, everything. I think one was
Oh
like
yeah.
a square and one was like a circle, but it was the same. And he just had a different name and a different price point. And he
Mm-hmm.
had people taste test both. And like everybody was saying the higher price one tastes better. And they're like, the
Perceived value.
cheap one is dry. Like it was affecting their taste.
Yeah,
Like they think
absolutely.
exact same cake. They were saying the
Hmm.
cheap one tastes dry. Like just
Yep.
because of
Hmm.
what the price did at a
Hmm.
psychological level. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's, standard perceived value, and it also, qualifies, for me, like I have in my business model, I have everything from, like $100 a month membership all the way, or, I think that's the cheapest. Yeah, $100 a month membership all the way up to like, multiple five-figure work with me privately, right? So there's just like a wide range. And these are ways that my audience can kind of like self-select and, and self-identify as like what feels good. But essentially it's like, what's the word? It's like, it's what's the stretch for you? It's what's the stretch? It's go deeper. So even when they're investing in the lowest end, the invitation is let's stretch a little bit more and go beyond. And so it takes them to the next level. And it's all about this like gentle stretch and like where do you want to plug in within the experience. And because my work is so like activating, I have people that will sign up for my least expensive thing and be activated and self-identify as the most premium within like one touch point, because it just allows them the opportunity to self-identify to how deep they want to go. So it also really does an amazing job at filtering, the caliber of like clients that I get to work with. It's really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's something special. I mean, that's why country clubs and things like that have had a business model for many, many years. Is there's just something special about, hey, I know everybody in this group is a member. I know everybody has been vetted.
Yeah.
I may not know who's sitting across the table or across the room having dinner with their wife, but he's probably a decent person or she's probably a decent person if they're a member of this club, just for like
Yeah.
having just making that investment. So it helps us tremendously. Because I talk, I've had multiple podcast conversations about racism and prejudice and stuff like that. And this is definitely a way humans are prejudiced. If someone we feel is like a member or part of the community or like a higher class or something, we automatically just think whatever they say and do is more credible.
Hmm.
And it's, nothing about them, but oh, they're a member at this club. It's like what colleges almost do. Oh, you graduated from Harvard. Well, yeah, you see, you must be pretty smart. So let's dive into your business,
Hmm.
Bold Self. Tell us about that, because that's I know you work primarily with females, right? So I'd love to just learn more about that.
Yeah, my work has really been an evolution of kind of parallel of my own personal life. This is my third technical like online brand slash business. I was a blogger over a decade ago, and it was like Chiara says. My last business was this online magazine. We were about 500,000 to 1 million page views a month. And then we went into print, got picked up for distribution. And it was about all women empowerment. It was very like outwardly focused. And then Bold Self emerged around spring of like 2016, and I had no idea what it was going to be, but it was essentially following me on my journey, because that was about the time that I quit my corporate job. So Bold Self started as this kind of online hub for women to just like find their independence and all of that. As I started my journey, with my own business, it started to develop into, and I had so much like online marketing. I worked as a Universal Music for a long time. I worked at a creative agency in New York. My last business was completely grown organically, crowdfunding. We raised money. So I had so many things under my belt that eventually Bold Self kind of first evolved into like, start your business. That's where it started. In the last few years, it's evolved with me into being the space that allows, women who are creating these phenomenal businesses. I mean, it's pretty freaking mind-blowing, multiple 5-figure months, in positions of just by coaching and creating content online. And in my eyes, it's, a group of women that are essentially like revolutionizing, leading revolutions in the online space. There's healers and creators and, there's love and dating, magic, like all of these wonderful industries. And these women are just like shattering ceilings over and over and over again, higher, 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 climbing. Like my current mentor right now makes 7 figures a month, just this mind-blowing opportunity for women to step into their power. So essentially what Bold Self evolved into is a space to allow women to break the rules, create the business their way through aligning in the way that they best work, a lot of flexibility, through creative feminine flow, and just building these empires. So it's focused on independence. It's focused on radical self-expression. It's focused on, utilizing like our unique kind of personalities and taking personal branding away from that strategic marketing kind of structured mentality into like this like radically magical way of being like, here I am, and essentially we move from a very structured marketing approach to this way of just being and existing, and we make money by just being ourselves. So that's really what Bold Self has become. It's home for all these rule breakers, these women that are just creating these extraordinary lives for themselves and their communities. It's really powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just so I understand, when you say multiple 5-figure months, that typically is like their income, right? Like that, because in coaching, it's not like there's a lot of it like hard cost associated. Whereas like my e-com store, like, we're 10 or 15% net margin. So to make, $100,000, we have to do $1 million in revenue. Whereas like coaching, right. So multiple, it's like they basically can make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month in income is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and beyond, with very low overhead, small teams. Most of them are not even doing it through paid advertising. Most of them are doing it organically.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So who's your like ideal like client? Is it somebody that already has a coaching business, somebody that wants to start a coaching business?
Yeah, my ideal client already has a coaching business, and she's probably making she's already at 5 figures a month, and she's like ready to scale that, ready to go to a 500,000 to a 7-figure year. Things are working. So something that I've noticed is that from like 0 to 6 figures within our industry as a woman, it's very masculine driven. You're like setting up all the like kind of structured foundations. So like, how do I enroll clients? Like, what's my email sequence? Like, what's the thing that's going to get someone on a sales call? It's very like, what are the things? What are the mechanisms? And then from like 100, I want to say from like 6 figures to like maybe 500,000, you're just kind of like optimizing things. You're starting to scale a little bit. You're delegating, you're kind of starting to lean into your own mastery. So that's where I start to work with women. So that's one kind of area. It's like finding, because that's what my big like superpowers is around allowing women to really tap into the mastery of their own, like knowing about how to like lead these businesses and be themselves. So there's a lot of that. And then from, that 250,000 and beyond, we're looking at like amplification. We're looking at like creating multiple little or multiple layers or opportunities for clients to plug in, to pay you, like always having opportunities for people to pay you and like streamlining things. So that's around the work that I do is around like, I want to say into the 250,000 to 500K and beyond. That's kind of like my ideal client.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are a coach earning $100,000 a year compared to a coach that wants to earn $1 million a year plus? Like, what typically is holding them back from getting them to $1 million plus if they're stuck around that like $100,000 a year? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so this is where, I think you and I have spoken about this, that like the kind of the masculine approach and the feminine approach, right? So the masculine approach, if I were to answer that on a very like strategic, logical level, there would be some stuff around team and scaling and like, streamlining and like these very like technical, this technical terminology and aspects of like the business. Whereas the work that I do is more like about embodiment. It's more about like mindset. It's more like energetic. It's more about alignment. So a lot of the women that I work with, they are the brand. So in order for a business to grow from 6 figures to multiple 6 figures to 7 figures and beyond, it's more so the amplification of them as a like a self-expression of the being. So for me, it's Chiara, like being even more Chiara in the online space. It's more about stepping into my power, more like fine-tuning my own it factor, right? Than it is like the specifics around my team or anything like that. So what I've found is a lot of women, in this industry, there's fear of being judged, is like this fear of like, oh my God, if I start making more money, I'm going to be exposed, right? Like to more people and like, ooh, the judgments, ooh, the, being like ostracized, like all of these kind of feelings. Like, what if they don't like me or more people watching, right? So there's these kind of things. There's all of these different, and also not even just within the space, there's also fears like, shit, I'm going to be making a lot of money, right? How would that sit with my partner? What if I start to make more money than my partner? Do I then like, there's like, oh, is love or being loved on, the concept of being loved now is on the table. Like, will he love me less if I make more than him, right? So we want to be loved, and that becomes a fear. So all of these little things that are hidden, it's so much more, in my opinion, about that than it is like, whether you're like how well you're outsourcing to a VA. At least this is, as a woman running this business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think there obviously, like, the technical stuff is there's always going to be a place for it. But yeah, I think it's similar in, what I do and guys that I'm friends with that I'm work with. I mean, there's so much like subconscious self-doubt and like, do I even deserve this? I'll even hear people have like weird money beliefs. I'm assuming you get into that with them just like views bad money beliefs based on, like I heard somebody say, who I think is it was one of my sister's friends I was just with for the Super Bowl. We just had people over, and he's like an aspiring, like, creative and entrepreneur. But he's like, I like money, but it's the root of all evils. I'm like, you're never gonna earn a lot of income if you believe that the money is the root of all evils, because that's just like, I feel those type of things that people believe money is the root of all evils, like that was just rhetoric created so they could rationalize being poor, right? And like poor people came up with that, or rich people came up with it to like oppress poor people that wanted more out of their life. Like what are your, like, do you guys do a lot of like training on how their relationship with money is?
Yeah. So I know so everything I teach is always parallel to my own journey. And I believe that's what keeps me in integrity, in my work. And that's why my work continues to change. But my relationship with money and the relationship with money is at the core of foundational teaching in all of my programs, in all of my work. And in my own personal life, not only was it the first thing that I started working on, 3.5 years ago, but it's consistent. I continue, and this is what I teach my clients as well. I'm always working on wealth consciousness. I'm always working on my money mindset, because there's always a next level. So I'm not here to make X amount and that's that. Like, I want to make X amount, and then I want to make Y amount, and I want to keep going, right? So every layer is going to inevitably bring up those little monsters of like adequacy. Like, okay, cool. Like, I'm good enough for this. Awesome. Did the work. Now I want to 5X that. It's inevitable for the little monster to come up and for me to feel like, ooh, am I good enough for that? And, oh God, here it is. Like, I thought I dealt with this. Why am I feeling this again? Right. And so what I teach my clients is that more than just like, yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta do it consistently. You do it consistently to navigate anything that's present, and you do it consistently to navigate, or you do it consistently for what's the word, like in a preventative way. So you just build this as a discipline so that you can continue to grow and expand, and you just go right to the work the more money you make. Because a lot of the women that I work with make a lot of money really quickly. And if you don't do this work alongside these like kind of quantum leaps, you're going to self-sabotage. Because even though 3 years ago or 2 years ago or earlier in the summer, you did some like money mindset book, you listened to Secrets of a Millionaire, right? or Think and Grow Rich. Like, you have to be able to do that, because if you don't, and you think that you're like all good and tidied up, if you make the most money you've ever made, and there's any evidence of inadequacy there, or fear of rejection, or fear of all the things, you're going to sabotage it. And you're going to bring yourself back down to zero, because parts of you just don't feel like you're going to be worthy of that. So it's really like preventative, and work alongside is really powerful and important.
No, for sure. And I think in modern society, and I can't speak for dealing with just women like you do in your business, but just from people in general, I know, wealth is kind of viewed, money and wealth. I choose the word wealth because I just think it more implies what I see value in with money, is just like the wealth aspect, not like the paper money. But wealth shouldn't be a dirty word. It's a great thing. And I have 6 core values that I write down very regularly. Wealth is my number 6. So I value it. It's not the most important thing, but I still value it. And just going to bed at night knowing that, hey, I value wealth, and that's okay. Wealth can create a lot of opportunities for people. It can help causes I'm passionate about. It can create an amazing lifestyle for me and my family. It can help innovate and help people all over the world. I mean, wealth does a lot of great things. And I think for me, like, that was just one of the first big breakthroughs, is just being like, hey, wealth is not only should we all aspire to be wealthy, wealth is such an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Big fan. I mean,
Yeah.
big fan.
Big fan of wealth. Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, to go from being this like struggling, like, my apartment in New York when I first started 3.5 years ago was this 2 bedroom with uneven floors where I had like my furniture, I had to nail my furniture to the wall because the floor was uneven and everything would flip over otherwise, and it was like this carpet, it was like mold ridden and all of that, to living in I live in a 3 bedroom home right now in Venice Beach, California, which is an incredibly like, it's definitely not the cheapest, we'll just say, area here in LA. It's very, very, it's pretty expensive to live here, to live like right off of Abbot Kinney. And I never thought that I would ever get to pay this level of like rent, and have this like beautiful, magnificent home and stuff like that. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful to be here with the sunshine and all the things that's created with money that I got to make. And this is, this is it. This is our fucking life, and then we die. So like,
Yeah.
why not go and create? Because money, just, it's all it is like it gets to support you, it gets to mimic like your excitement to live your life. I want to have these magnificent experiences. I want to also create those experiences for other people. Because I make money, I can create jobs. Like there's so many amazing things that come out of it. So like, why the fuck not? Like why the fuck not? So big fan.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad we align on that. So are there any common, I'm going to use coaching language. Are there any common threads that you see of like women that come to you that are having this ceiling? Like, are there like, what are some like common beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, or just things that they're dealing with that seem to be the case in a lot of the women that you work with that are just preventing them to get to that next level?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So one of the things, for example, is, oh, this is a good one. So we've already talked about that fear of being seen by more people, the fear of potentially like being exposed and being rejected. We've talked about these fears around like partnerships or like even just relationships. So it could be like your friendship or your family, and like suddenly making these stupid amounts of money and like feeling like these amazing close relationships are at stake because of it, or and all of that. So those are like pretty standard. Another thing really interesting that I have noticed, obviously and I think this is consistent whether you're whatever you are, man, woman, whatever, is that fear of relinquishing like control. So when you're like starting to scale and you're bringing on support and like, there's that micro like, I don't know if they can do it, and like delegating is essentially like the letting go of the grip, which is always really hard, especially for creators who have really worked their ass off to create what they've created. It's like, oh my God, my baby, like I'm afraid that these people aren't going to do it as well as I am, or this is the big one though, and this is specific in the coaching industry, but this is a really big one. What I've noticed is that from like 0 to that 6 figures, there's a little bit of hand holding that's happening as a coach to client, right? They're like really working deeply, like let's get you the results, that's very hands on. It's very like, here's all of my programs. They're so detailed in slide decks, and like, here's your workbook. It's very like I'm with you on this. And something happens in the transition where you start to step away from the hands-on do, and you start to step into, people pay me a lot of money to just be around me, to have access to my brain, which is very scary because you're not as hands-on and you fear, well, will people get results if they're just plugged into my energy rather than me being hands-on and guiding them by hand through the results? And so there's this there's this thing that emerges around worthiness that's very interesting, because these are people who have already built six-figure businesses, but they're essentially like going from like hands-on coach to like energetic mentor, like being like a wealth of knowledge that you get access to. Like my mentor making what she makes. Yes, I work with her privately. I've invested six figures to work with her. Why? Because I fucking have access to her brain. There's no like crazy hands-on curriculum that I'm getting by working with her. It is literally like I get her brain. How amazing, right? So there's this really interesting thing where like those feelings of inadequacy like resurface, and is like, am I good enough to just exist? And this is where a lot of the work that I do with women is around that like self-expression, around the amplification, that it factor, the, you know, Chiara is Chiara. And so the, like a lot of women, for example, invest in my programs without really knowing what they are. I stopped having sales pages. I don't sell by giving like bullet points of everything they're going to receive. I sell through emotion, through experience. Like I sell through my heart, just being like, this is going to be fucking epic. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And people are just like, such a hell yes from here. Every time that I start one of my digital courses, my live programs, and I ask, why are you here? Why did you invest in this? Yes, they'll say, oh, because I want to blah, blah, blah. But the majority of them will say, just so I can be in your energy. Because just by being and investing and being like, I get to, they feel like this permission to find, you know, in my case, it's that boldness, it's that courage, it's that self-expression. They're just like, by way. So that transition from like, I'm only worthy if I can hand hold someone through results, to I'm good enough just by existing, is like a really steep mountain to climb, because there's so much like worthiness attached to that. And I say that's the biggest thing that keeps women, that holds them back.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So have you worked with any women or executives, like maybe like founders or like C-level or anything, that weren't in the coaching space?
No, it's not my, I mean, I've talked to them, I've connected with them, but they're not my client base.
Not really that interesting.
No, because what I like, yeah. But so, because, like I said, because everything that I create is very much aligned and parallel to my own evolution, I very much stick to my own life path, and
Totally.
women who are, you know, excited by that. And that's what allows me to be like in constant integrity with what I sell. Like if I started to like work with executive, like that's not my jam.
For sure, that makes sense. I feel like from a business opportunity standpoint and like impact, and if it's not a fit for you, like if you don't like it, that makes sense. But like I know, you know, some women around our age that'd be like, man, I wish I had like more women coaches that have kind of like could help me with business. And I feel like, you know, men can help women with certain aspects, but like the stuff that you're talking about, I feel like there's a big market opportunity for women helping other women in business.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, here's the thing about it. My business is there's such flexibility, right? So let's say if I were to have somebody come to me and say, look, I know that you mainly focus on coaches, but I listened to your podcast, or I saw your thing, and like, holy shit, woman, like, how do I pay you? How do I work with you? I'm an executive, whatever. I'd say, cool, let's play. There would be no part of me that would deny the fact that this is a new experience for me. So I show up very authentically and transparently, be like, I've never worked with anyone within this industry, but I think this could be really fun. If in my heart of hearts, and this is kind of what I was talking about, that intuitive, if I had that intuitive pull to say like, yes, there'd be this total transparency of like, let's co-create this new experience together. And I would play with it and I would do it. You know, like for example, you know, I do coach women, but a lot of my stuff, surprisingly enough, also attract men, where they come in and they're like, I've got all the support, the masculine support in terms of like structuring my business. And yet I feel Like I can't stand up for myself in a sales conversation, or I don't know. There's like aspects of like self-expression or confidence that come up, and they're like, I know that you usually market to women, but do you by chance have space for one-on-one? And I get to say, absolutely, let's co-create this experience together. I don't usually work with men, but here's what it would look like. Does that feel good? There's so much like flexibility in the way that I do. It's more reactive. Like it has to feel like a yes for me than it is being like, oh, this is a smart like venture or a smart like corner of the industry that I can go into that would be really profitable. Like that's just not where my how my mind works right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I that's kind of what I was thinking too. Is I feel like a lot of men could benefit. Just it's the
Mm,
balance, right? It's and I think The Way of Superior Man, which is one of my favorite books, it talks
hmm.
about this. Just like the modern superior man, like has his masculine, has his backbone, but is also like comfortable and has like feminine aspects too.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not like the superior man 50,000 years ago was the guy that could go hunt and protect you from tigers. So like that obviously that type of like male energy is still out there, right? But it's not the probably he's not going to have the most success in relationships and business and stuff with that type of. And then the opposite extreme, which is like the complete pushover, like
Right.
that's not good either. So something in the middle is that modern superior man. So I have to imagine there's big opportunities with men too, just like getting more open with their feelings and just getting outside of that. Especially, I feel like it's a little more common with like maybe like millennial men are just like a little more in touch with their feelings. But there's definitely some men that I've had like business relationships with or somewhat friendships, and they just it's just very very like masculine energy, not sharing feelings, and um it yeah, there's definitely some again, I'm not saying this is where you should go, I'm just kind of speaking out loud. I just think
Yeah.
whoever it is, there's a market opportunity there because I think
Totally.
that could help them be more happy and help them be more successful in business too.
Yeah, and I also, I mean, I will say like, I'm a little bit of a unique flower because I do have a really strong, like, my feminine power is something essentially what I've been working on for the past like couple years, allows me to really connect deeply with women and activate. And I have a lot of like sisterhood in my community. However, I'm strong, I'm firm. So my first program ever coaching was actually a dating and relationship program for high achieving men. So in the realm of their life, they were incredibly shut down, really shut off. And so there's like this part of them that wanted to like soften. And it's like me being how I am, like I could hold myself within the container with a really strong man, a successful man making 7 8 figures a year. I could hold myself, I can hold my own, I could challenge him, but I could also soften him. So I do have this kind of superpower where I'm not too soft. I'm really I can connect with you, but I can also like not take your shit. I could challenge you strongly, like, and really like hold that. So with the men that I've worked with over the years, I know that's been a big driver. And, like I said, I could go out and I could market this if I wanted to. But what I have found to be the most powerful and the most effective is just being myself, and that naturally attracts, I'll get them guys. It's like, I know you only work with women, but like could we work together? Because like holy shit. And that those are always really fun containers for me, really fun things because I get to really play and have fun.
Yeah, and for sure that makes sense, and it also creates a little more scarcity for you, thus allowing you to charge more. Because if you don't have something available, then it's like, okay, well, I can maybe create it. It's just gonna be this
Yeah,
amount. So yeah, for
fun.
sure. So a little bit of a shift of topic, quick. I'm just curious, and it's a slightly political question, but just with you working with women and you being a successful woman yourself, I feel you're a great person to ask. We've come a long way with just equality of everybody in the country. I know right now is a very tense time with equality, but if you just look back 10, 20, 50, 100 plus years, we've come a long way in this country and around the world. Uh, with that being said, there's always room to grow. So I'm not saying we've hit the part, we don't have to stop growing. But where we're at in 2021, do you feel like there are any disadvantages in the business world or in a professional setting if you're a woman?
Probably not the way you think. What I aim to do with women specifically addresses this. So I find that the entrepreneurial space, especially the coaching industry, and just like the online space, we'll just say as entrepreneurs, was very much male dominated, very much, and not just like male dominated, like the humans being male, but like strategic, right? Like the strategy is a very masculine approach, I started blogging, like it was very like this and that and do this and very like hustle, and it was very like hustle focused, and it's like very masculine energy.
People still use that word, hustle.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. But also like energy,
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But like speaking to, for me, like I started my business, like even when I started blogging, right? Like I started blogging by way of like copy blogger, pro blogger, right? Derek Halpern, Amy Porterfield, who's a woman, yes, but her stuff is so strategic. Pat Flynn, like this is what I was very much like this and this and this. Within the coaching industry is a very like, again, like very like you got to push through this. If something doesn't feel good, you got to push through it. Like very masculine, right? So what I've found is that for women, there's a lot that's like this perceived path to success that doesn't really work with how we're designed. And I think that's the disruption. That is the thing that makes women feel at odds. Like they're within the space. It's not really created to really best fit the way that they create and how they birth things into reality and the creativity and all of that. So what we're seeing, especially within the coaching industry and just like the entrepreneurial space with women is, and this is my work, is like not necessarily like abandoning things that are very strategically focused, but creating a business that actually gets to work with your flow, works with like your way. And I think that creating something that's more aligned with a woman's way of creation and leadership allows them to fast track success. So when we're first entering this space, it's very much like out of our design. So like I was exhausted. I was like working like 18-hour days, and I was pushing on that Gary V like kind of feeling, that mentality of like, got to do this, got to show up, got to do all the things. And if I don't, like if I'm not making the kind of money that I want to be making, it's because I'm not doing enough. And that was very much attached to my ego and achievement, right? Whereas within the for women, for us, it's about being aligned and being like on purpose and being like creating something that really works with our energy. So that's, in my opinion, the thing that has been the most challenging for women to rise up.
Yeah. So from an entrepreneur standpoint, I like that. What if you're like most of the country, male and female, and you work for a company? Mm-hmm. What would you say to those women?
I remember a long time ago. I mean, the last time I worked for anyone was like over 5 years ago. So it's really like, it's really interesting to really like play in that. But I think there's something really, see, for me, it's like I've trained my mind so much to not look at how we as women are like, set up to lose, or we don't win. Like I look at women and their power, and it's like, what does it look like to amplify your power? What does it look like to like really leverage your gifts and like shine up, but like in a way that's like in the most aligned version of you? So I would say to these women is stop trying to make it in a man's world and make it a woman's world, like for you. within a company, within whatever, like climbing that corporate ladder, you're not going to climb that ladder in the same way that Joe Schmo is going to climb that ladder. So creating, like using that magnetism, the power of the feminine energy to create that creativity, to, let's say, go for that promotion and rise, like by amplifying the power of being a woman rather than trying to make it work in a men's way. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, that makes sense, and that I mean makes sense as far as I can understand it from a man's point of view, at least. But
Yeah.
no, I would just add to that, especially younger business owners. And again, I can't speak for everybody, and there's exceptions, and we can always look at the exceptions, and think we're at a disadvantage or whatever, like in any area of life. But my whole life, if somebody, man or woman, has come to me that it's worked on my team and said, hey, like, this is an area I think we could improve, I think we could improve in this area of communication, or how we do this activity with the team or whatever, like, I'm always open and super appreciative to hear stuff like that. So I would just, man or woman, but we're talking about women specifically here, like, if there's something that you feel like would make you feel better or make the other women on the team feel better, and it's just like, hey, if we did this in the company, I think the women would like that, or like, I would just encourage them to share, and just have that adult conversation. And because it, like, most business owners, ultimately, I want to have the most successful business possible with the happiest team possible, right? I don't want a successful business with a team that's like gonna leave the next day when they get a better offer, right? So I want both, because that's how they can continue to both do well together. So most business owners or people in leadership positions in businesses are going to be very open to areas for improvement, because the incentives are aligned. The happier the team is, the happier the dynamic's going to be, and the likely the more successful the business is going to be. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, 1,000%. It's why, I mean, I say this to my team all the time. I'm like, listen, there's an aspect of execution that's necessary, and we get to all pull, whatever in whatever area you're in. But like, I hired you for your genius. So like, show up in your genius. Give me the ideas. Let's brainstorm. Let's create something that's going to, like, I really love bringing people in, not as little machine workers, but rather like show me what you're made of, because what makes you you is different than what makes me me. And I was just sharing this with a client of mine. It's amazing to see how powerful it is to give your team like that sense of power of being like that invitation to rise, to express themselves, to really own their magic and own their genius. And man or woman, I think it's something that as leaders we get to really invite into, because there's an aspect of like radical ownership over the business that they feel like they're part of the team, they feel like they're part of the movement, and their creations are going to be that much better, even regardless of what their roles are within the team. I genuinely see it as like their magic is infused in all that we put out. And I think that's really powerful. So I think as like those of us in CEO positions, or just in leadership positions, in the entrepreneurial space, really have, we have an opportunity to really create empowered teams, and giving people that permission to really express their genius. I think it's really powerful.
Absolutely, I agree. And are you familiar with Jordan Peterson?
I started his stuff. It's a hefty book, that book he wrote. Yeah.
Which one? 12 Rules?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
started. It was really good.
He has another book, his from like before he was popular, like in the early 90s, called Maps of Meaning. That's a good book too. I've only read that once. I've read 12 Rules multiple times. But Jordan Peterson, and it's been somewhat controversial. If you don't know the interview I'm talking about, you can look it up, like Jordan Peterson gender debate. But he's
Oh, I
he's
saw
like
that.
classified as like this like right extremist, but he's not. It's just because anyway, his thing was, and he's been a clinical psychologist for basically his whole adult life. He said his studies show that women are naturally a little bit more agreeable than men, and this is just a subconscious natural habit, and how he's helped women earn more income in their careers is just being less agreeable. So where it's like for men in a negotiation, and what he'll say is like in a negotiation, a woman may be the first one, like more likely to be like, okay, I agree to that. Whereas like men, and this is just natural traits. Again, obviously there's exceptions. There's hardcore
Totally.
badass
Yeah.
negotiator women's and guy that like will just be like, sure, yeah, I'll take whatever. Like,
Hmm.
but he's just like, I've noticed, from my, thousands of clients I've had, men and women, women are just naturally a little more agreeable. So he's like, just the coaching of some of my women clients to be less agreeable, their income is 2x and 3x. Just
Hmm.
that one thing. And I thought that was interesting too. It's just like, hey, like, I just think of, because I've had team members over the year, and I can tell you 100% this is the case with, I've had more guys be like, if I don't get this, I'm quitting. Like if I don't get this raise, I'm fucking out of here. Because it's
Hmm.
just like maybe it's not like rational, maybe it's not. Whereas like all the female team members I've had over the years, we've had conversations, but I've never had like a threat like that. So it's
Right.
just like I think it's just there's that masculine like what, fuck that, I don't need them, and like unintentionally it like gets them higher wages at times or gives them leverage in negotiations because they're just like, I'm like, oh shit, if it's a good team member, I'm like, I don't want them to leave, I guess I'm just gonna have to pay him a little bit more, like. So I don't know if you too familiar with that, but I just that one trade, I thought that was interesting, and it became super controversial because of the times we're in. It's unfortunate that was, because I think his intention was strictly to help, but I'm curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, it's really funny. So what comes up for me is, I mean, you know, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised to learn something like that. I can speak to this specifically around like my clients and pricing their offers and being, and selling, for example, being on a sales call and really taking like ownership over their pricing and their premium pricing and like wanting to like drop it if like the moment that somebody's like, and that's a little too much for me, this like fear of like, oh my God. And so I've had, one of the things that I work really intensely with my clients is like holding that standard for what that price point is. So it doesn't surprise me to hear something like that. I definitely see that like the work that has to be done around like holding, and really like taking this ownership over like a standard that you set in your business, like your pricing and all that stuff, and not bending over backwards or shifting and changing and mutating something so like someone says yes, because that's a lot of the work that we do. And ultimately, what that results in is a woman pricing way lower than what her work is worth and, then beating herself up over it. And that's kind of like a lot of what the work it's interesting because you can look at something like factually like that and be like, yeah, women are more agreeable. Like, but let's talk about what that does psychologically to a woman, to be like, fuck, man, like I really couldn't hold my own, or I let this person completely walk over me. So, because there's the front end, right? Like what you guys see like on the other side of it. And then there's like when the camera goes off or the door closes and you're walking home and you're just like, damn, like I really just got, right now. So that's a lot of the work that I do as well. But, we're looking at people pleasing. We're looking at, especially women who are, you know, dipping their toes in creating their own income rather than relying on a partner, and then suddenly like they're responsible. There's a lot of things that end up being on the table. It's a lot of work. And I know for me, I've gotten to really experience it because I mean I'm pretty, I mean, bold self. Like I'm pretty, firm and I can stand and I can hold my own. But I remember I think it was like last year, I host conferences, and I had somebody that was going to sponsor, and he started to want to negotiate and like was like wanting to like invest less. He's like, well, how about I give this? And like, I remember that feeling like, being as accomplished as I am, like having these incredible, knowing like how powerful my events are, like knowing that like he would like what a fucking ROI, like he's, this is a good, knowing my sponsorship packages were like perfectly crafted, and still really needing to like, like really like had to hold my own and being like, no, that doesn't work for me. How about, and then like, coming back with my own, and I really remember having to like breathe that power in to hold my own, because it was just me head to head with a successful man.
Yeah.
And so it's still stuff that I have to navigate, and it's something that I'm sure women are just navigating no matter whether you're in corporate or in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah, no, that's a great share, and that's a great example. And I'm probably going to have Kyler, who is our director of relationships at our founders mastermind. I'm going to have her listen to that portion, because I think that'll be helpful for her.
Yeah.
Just a little random rule of thumb. I wouldn't say never, because I feel like I don't want to lie. I have a few times, over the years, but I would say almost never negotiate the front end price. Like, I won't negotiate, but I will like throw in like some extra added value to
Yes.
like help sweeten the deal, because everybody wants to feel like they got a good deal. It's more like mental than logical at that point. They just want to feel like they got a special deal. Oh, like I've known you for a while, or whatever. So it's just like you can add some sweeteners in there to make them feel like they got a better deal, but not negotiate on that front end price. Like, so what we're doing with our mastermind is like our price point to invest in, like, it is what it is. But if they're gonna bring a partner, the partner's not gonna cost as much as them, or a team member or something. But as long as they're paying that entry level amount, no one's getting in for below that entry level amount. And that's just been my thing. And if like, hey, we can add some extra things, depending on what they want, like, hey, yeah, cool, we'll throw in a call in there for you or whatever, just to make them feel good. But as long as they're making that initial investment, I'm cool with that. And that's kind of the strategy that I work with. I'm curious if you do something similar.
Yeah, I only do added value. I do not discount at all. And again, it's more about the feeling afterward. So if I were to discount, I'd feel like I undervalued myself, or I'd feel really disempowered. I would feel like I, overextended myself for the sake of the yes, and that doesn't feel good. Like what that it just, it's so funny when I work with women and their price points, and I'm like, we're playing around with a more premium price point, and they're like, oh, that feels like a lot. And I'm like, trust me, like if you price less than this, you're gonna feel like you've gotten kicked in the shin. And they're like, I don't know, and then they'll have a sales call, and they'll discount it, and they'll get the sale, and they come, and it's just like, fuck, I got the yes, and it was a easy yes at that discounted price. So I never discount. It's always, I'm so happy to throw whatever the fuck you want in there. I have so much stuff. I've got courses, I've got calls, like there's so much that I could put in there. But what that does is that it holds my own like sense of value firm. I'm not sacrificing that for the yes. I'm getting that nourishment. I'm getting fulfilled. I'm being like met at that level. And that's what's my priority. So a lot of my like marketing approaches, or like these little kind of things over the years have evolved. Whereas when I first started in the space, it was very much like what's the psychology of like the difference of like discounting versus, adding value, like, to more of like, what do I feel? How do I feel energetically fulfilled, right? So even when I do like early bird price points for my like programs, when I do my launches and stuff like that, even if somebody buys at that early bird price, I feel completely nourished. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything. Whereas I used to approach it like, how can I make this the sweetest deal so that they like go in and like, oh my God, I'm saving so much money, right? Because then I'd feel gypped when they buy. So when I'm mapping out like the pricing for a program or whatever, I look at, I'm nourished by the payment plan. I'm nourished by the early bird pricing. I'm nourished by the VIP option. All of it feels great and nourishing, and I don't feel like I'm gypping myself in any of the way. So it's a little bit of a different approach, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because I feel like I never have to sacrifice myself for the sake of the sale.
100%. And yeah, to your clients that are like, it's a lot. I mean, like, because yeah, it is a lot. I agree with them. And like when clients will be like, man, that's expensive. Yeah, I agree. We're premium and we're not a fit for everybody. You know, I don't deny. Like you're 100% right. We are premium and we're not a fit. You know, we have it at this price point because we're really trying to filter out, you know, and find the best quality people. You know, so I agree with them. If anybody ever says we're expensive, I have learned to. I'm not going to argue if what's expensive or not. Yeah, we are premium and by design, you know, because we want a certain level, certain caliber of person in our group or as a client or whatever it is. So this was fun. Anything you want to share, promote before we bounce?
No, that's it. I feel good. This was fun.
Yeah, it was good. We had time flies when you're talking female empowerment and price points, right? So
so fun.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was good catching up.
Thank you for listening to Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player so you get updated when new episodes are live. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast with people in your life that you feel would benefit from these types of discussions. Visit openlyoutspoken.com for additional details on the show. Find out how to connect with Jeremy on social media and learn more information about Jeremy's personal and business life. We'll see you next time.